Good morning, grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Thursday, June 9th. And it's getting warmer. It's getting warmer, not necessarily here that much. I think it's like mid-70s today, but next week it'll be in the 90s, and that'll be a pain in the ass. We get like a lot of humidity here, so it's going to be pretty hot, but we like hot for when it comes to baseball, right? Because then the balls start flying out of the yard. Hopefully, if you're stacking those teams. So we'll be talking about today. We got an early slate today. We got a 4-game early slate. We got a 5-game later slate, and we got a lot of programming for you here on RotoGrinders. So Crunch Time, which is free, presented by FanDuel all year, will happen at noon. So right after this show, not on this stream, but on this channel, right after the show. At noon, you'll have Roth, you'll have Cheese, you'll have Keith, and they'll be breaking down for 35 minutes before lock what's going on this 4-game early slate. And then we have Grinders Live later today and another Crunch Time for the 5-game slate later. So a lot of people like, especially when there's an early slate, that when we just build lineups, like I will literally build the lineups that I would normally build for the early slate, like live on the show, to show, somewhat like what the process is. So it's a good opportunity to that. It gets me, I'm going to build 20 lineups into the $15 large field. It's not that large. It's like 70 to 100 entries, 25K to first on DraftKings. And then just show you walk you through kind of the process of coming up with 20 lineups for that contest, right? What considerations do you make? And, a lot of it is just diversification decisions, but we'll go through that. I say good morning to everyone in the chat. Trey, Suki Singh, Doug Montgomery, Matt Mears, Joe Mack, DFS Goku, Red Psych Sports, Sky City. Sky City says up 3K this month with RG. Finally, I think I have an MLB process. Well, you think you do, and then you go for a month without nothing. So get ready for that. It's going to be swinging. That's what DFS is in general. You just have to manage your bankroll well and survive for the big hits. That's the life of a GPP player. So I play for 2 or 3 days a season. So that's what you're looking for. And on those 2 or 3 days, am I getting 20,000, 50,000, 100,000? Or am I only getting 3,000, 5,000, 7,000? And that'll determine my profitability for the entire season. Right, that's the way DFS is. But good morning, Swad fan. Swalp Dab from yesterday. I hope he watched all 400 hours of my videos. Good morning, Brian Spurf Slag. What kind of names are these? Right, I don't mean to make fun, but come on. Make them a little bit more pronounceable. Sky City says he's ready for the swing. He's ready to get ready. You can play DFS perfectly and lose for 6 months. Who knows? I mean, realizing your EV is much harder than it looks, but you got to build plus EV lineups in order to even get there. But we have today's slate, and I think Cardi, the loop on these bat projections is down. Cardi didn't wake up early in the morning. Typically, they update every 5 minutes, but I have not seen an update. I'm going to reload. Yeah, 1028, because the Cincinnati Reds lineup is not as projected. Senzel is not in, and Moran is in. So we do not have, we take a look here. Senzel is still in there at 3K. And the ownership is got to be recalculated as well. because I think he was going to be fairly popular at 3K. The Reds are like the top team on the slate. We see here 5.31 implied run total, how much higher than everyone else on the slate. So and we can't really run lineups. I mean, I can switch over to the plate IQ projections. Even then, we don't have the ownership. So, like, if I switch over to the plate IQ projections, the problem is going to come in is that we have Moran at 0% owned, and at his projection, he'll just show up in every lineup, right? At 0% owned. Now, either I'll have to make a manual adjustment, or I'm just gonna have to wait until these get updated. I'm gonna hope they get updated within the next couple of minutes so I can start running lineups. But I'll always answer questions in the chat, right? Well, we got we'll be going today until about 11:45 or so, just to make time for the crunch time guys. Eric Johnson says, "Why do you want to play Burns versus the hot Philly team? Are they hot? Are they hot? Are they hot? Are they hot on the trot? Are they pretty? Are they attractive? Are they hot? Is Bryce Harper hot? Is he considered hot? Is he a hot guy? I have no idea. I don't care. I don't care about what happened yesterday. It doesn't matter to me. Do you want to play Burn? You want to play one of the best pitchers in baseball against a high variance team that the Phillies have a 3.27 implied run total. Second lowest on the slate. The St. Louis, the Cardinals, 3.07. And obviously those are the two pitchers that are going to be the most popular. Burns and McClanahan, 60% ownership. We could see here point per dollar wise, based on the plate IQ projections, you still got Tyler Mahle underneath them. Maybe some people may try to play Eflin against Milwaukee or Mikolas against Tampa Bay. I think I'm more likely to play Tampa Bay than play Mikolas on this slate. I think that if he's going to be 20% owned, I think that's an SB2 to attack. Demetrius Mack, what settings do you use for exposure and randomness? Nothing. Do you use a minimum salary? No. There's no magic settings. You're looking to build plus CV lineups. I'll show you. Don't worry about it. There's no magic settings. Okay. Don't worry about settings whatsoever. People get to, what settings do I put in and then press a button and they're my lineups? If you're doing that, that's why you're donating. I would say more than 90% of people that use optimizers or lineup builders are using them incorrectly. And there's an edge because I know how people misuse optimizers. So it's sometimes easy to tell like what pitchers or what one-offs and what teams could possibly be overowned, what constructions could be overowned just based on that. There's a $2,200 leadoff hitter. We can take a look here. I'm assuming Terry Friedel at 2,400 leading off for the Reds with the highest implied run total is going to be a very popular one-off in a lot of line. If you're not playing Cincinnati stacks, you're probably going to get a bunch of Friedel. And if you are playing Cincinnati stacks, you're probably getting Friedel +4, right? He's probably part of that. So I think Friedel's ownership is going to be very inflated just based on his price and his batting order and everything. Colin Moran may be lower because you got replaced Senzel. So just like now, we're just waiting for that update here. Well, now that's an MMA slate. Like some people, like whenever there's like late change to a lineup that wasn't projected, a lot of times they go a little bit under-owned. It depends when people are building lineups. Okay, it looks like, plate IQ projections have been updated. When do you build lineups? Are you using ceiling versus fantasy parts? Larger field, ceiling, smaller field points? Neither. Doesn't matter. Does not matter either way. That most of these projections are close to normally distributive, so it's not going to change much. You're still worried about things that don't matter. Okay. You're looking to build lineups for the field size that you're playing that have the right balance of projection and ownership. That is it. Okay. That's it. That's it. Simplify. You're worried about anything else is just diversification. So if like, how much of a stack, how much of a player, how much of a, you can build 20, I could build 20 Rays lineups for today's slate if I wanted to. But I could find plus EV lineups with the Cardinals. I could find plus EV lineups with stacks of any team on the slate or any player on the slate or any pitcher on the slate. The difference is that there probably aren't as many Cardinals plus EV lineups. There's probably more Cincinnati plus EV lineups. It doesn't mean Doesn't mean you have to play, just because there's a lot more available, doesn't mean you have to play 20 of them. Doesn't mean you have to play 10 of them. Doesn't have to mean you play any of them. That's a diversification issue. As long as you're playing 20 plus CV lineups, you're fine, and just do that forever. I prefer to play in a little bit lower variance way and a little bit more balanced. Sometimes I don't mind on these smaller slates. Like, I could see myself not playing any Cincinnati 5-man stacks, because I think they're going to be overowned. I think based on, we take a look at the stack value, right? DraftKings top MLB stacks and stack values, team smash percentage, which has not been updated with that Cincinnati lineup. You can take a look at the chances are, using the plate IQ projections, the team smashes, right? What percentage of time and what percent they're owned. So like Cincinnati, 17%, but they'll be owned to 23% on average. So you see here the difference, right? So you see Milwaukee and Cincinnati seem to be over-owned. Doesn't mean they can't get there. Doesn't mean they're just like, for their ownership, they're negative leverage. On average, doesn't mean you can't build Cincinnati lineups. You just have to find leverage elsewhere. So I'd be more inclined build more Tampa Bay lineups, right? Because positive leverage, 13% chance of smashing, 8% ownership. I mean, the ownership has not been updated, but if you to read this chart, I'm just showing you what that means. The White Sox look to be the highest smashed, second highest owned, but actually slightly under owned. So maybe I play a little bit more of the White Sox, but I don't know. But yeah, Phillies at the bottom. Yeah, if you're going to stack against McClanahan or Burns, you're going to have positive leverage. But I mean, just understand the chances of, they have the two lowest chances. Now, out of 20 lineups, maybe I play one Cardinal stack. Maybe I play one Philly stack. Yeah, I can play 20 Philly stacks. I mean, you could find 20 Phillies plus EV lineups. Just understand, when the average result is Corbin Burns going out, doing pretty well. The Phillies score maybe 2 runs, and then all your 20 lineups, they're not going to cash. But if Burns gets lit up, you have 20 shots at 25K in that contest. So what are the swings are you willing to take? And that's where diversification comes in, and that's really up to you. Let's see. Can we get? I'm looking through the back channel. Okay. Cardi says he's checking it out. Okay, so I'd love to be able to use the bat projections with updated ownership. We don't have the updated ownership. Let me tell you, if we don't have the updated ownership, Colin Moran's going to be in he's going to show up in 300 lineups. You could tell here, right? I could just sort by point per dollar. It still has Senzel in there. But look, Friedel. Anyone that shows up this high, like this, people end up using as one-offs. I see Adam Engel, Josh Harrison, right? These White Sox guys. DJ Friedel. Maybe not Kane as much. Vidal Brujan of Tampa Bay. He's batting 9th, but second base and shortstop eligible. We take a look at just position by position. Where people pay up. You got Danny Mendick if he leads off, right? Second base and shortstop leading off for the White Sox. Not a very good raw projection. Not even that great of a point per dollar projection, but second base seems like shortstop is outside of maybe Turner and Adames, not a good position today. So if you're going to pay down, why not play for the leadoff hitter against who? Tyler Anderson. Okay, we're getting a lineup in for the White Sox. Okay, so let's see how different that is. Mendick, Vaughn, Robert, Abreu, Berger, Pollock, Grandal, Engel, Harrison. So no Mancada. We still have Engel in there. We still have Grandal in there. So essentially, who's out for Mancada? Berger for Mancada. That's pretty much it. And of course, Berger's batting 5th and knocking it kind of all these guys down a little. Okay, so there's only one guy in the lineup that's not. Right? Berger for Mancada. Okay. Just so if I have to do any manual adjustments, it just makes it easier for me. Okay, so we're still waiting on the Brewers lineup. We're still waiting on the Dodgers lineup. So maybe the 20 liners we build in the next half an hour may not be exactly what they look like when I do enter them, because I'll still have to swap. I want to get this Cincinnati lineup in here. Waiting for the update. Are we getting that? No, we still have not got it. So I'll just have to manually change it. If we're going to start building, I need to manually change this stuff. So I'm gonna make something up even. So we go to Cincinnati. I'm gonna get rid of Senzel. I'm gonna go to hide unprojected so I can get Colin Moran. Add him. No. Add 10% ownership. Let's just put that in just so he shows up. 5 points just so he shows up. Turn off hide unprojected. We got that. Okay, now I'm going to go over the plate IQ projections and see what, because those projections are updated with Moran, just not with the ownership. 8.23 in the plate IQ and source value 0. Yeah, he's not going to be 0% owned. I don't care about the ceiling really, but whatever. Let's put him at 10%. Is there any other first? Oh, because Votto's there also. So Votto's going to suck up a lot of that ownership at first base, and they're both only first base eligible. So I'll just put in 10 just for the hell of it. I don't know if it's going to be 10, but I need a number there, right? In order to start building lineups, I need these numbers. Let's go to the White Sox. Let's kind of do the same thing. Moncada's out. Let's go to hide unprojected. Let's get Berger in there. Let's just put 5 and 5 just so he comes up. What is Moncada's? Oh, I'm just gonna use Moncada's projection. Probably should be a little bit lower, right? Berger's 3K, Moncada. Okay, let's just call it 7. 7.2. Ownership 8. Is that good? We're giving him too big of a projection. No, that seems pretty good. So we'll put 7. Yeah, say, well, this looks pretty good. Yeah, should he have a higher projection than Mendick? Should he have a higher projection than, maybe not as high as Moncada? Yeah, let's put him at 7 and 8. 7 and 7 projection, 8% ownership. Let's just do that. They get rid of Moncada. Okay. Now, obviously, if this gets updated, I could just refresh it with the real numbers, but it's close enough. So refresh this, but I need numbers in there in order to build lineups. And you can't just have zeros because then they're never going to show up. Let's go back to the bat projections, which still have not been updated. Just want to make sure we get if all these lineups are in correctly. Cincinnati. Okay. Where's Colin Moran? Where did he go? Did me switching over got rid of his projection? Yeah, it did. Bring that back in. Moran. And I have to go back and add Berger now. Again. No, Berger's there. Berger's fine. We got the Bergers. The Bergers are good. Okay, so now let's start building lineups. Okay, so I have 300 lineups. Some amount of diversification. Right. I'm going to be building for a 4-game slate. I'm going to take a look at just straight up 5-man stacks. 5-man stacks and 3 one-offs. Okay. Now, I don't mind getting a whole bunch of stuff, but based on our, where are we going? Based on our smash percentage tool, looks like Cincinnati, Milwaukee, and Arizona a little overowned. Cincinnati and Milwaukee are overowned, and Arizona is slightly overowned. So maybe I don't want to see as many of those types of lineups. So maybe I max out 5-man stacks of those teams to 10%, maybe 8%, something like that. Maybe 8%. 8% Milwaukee. Okay, which means I'll probably get a little bit more Eflin, a little bit more Davis. I don't know how much of Davis I'm going to get. Maybe Arizona, do 8 as well. How much of Phillies and Cardinals to get? Probably not much either. I got 40% left for all these other teams. 1, 2, 3 for 3 other teams. So 60. So let's just split that evenly. 20, 20, 20. That's equals 100 right up over there. I'm going to give it a little bit more leeway. 22, 22, 22. Right, 106. Or maybe I just give the Tampa Bay ones. How does Los Angeles rate out? Well, that's in the snack tool. LAD a little bit under-owned. And we have White Sox is a little bit under-owned also, but they're much higher smash percentage. So I'm going to raise. I'll go LAD 16. Tampa Bay and the White Sox 24, just to get a little bit over 100. So it gives the optimizer a little bit of a leeway in order to build 5-man stack lineups. Now remember, I'm making 300 lineups. This is not going to be the distribution of what I'm getting the 20 lineups in. This is just so I could look at lineups, and I want to look at more Tampa Bay lineups, more Dodgers lineups, more White Sox lineups. And I don't mind. Look, I don't. Let's see. Maybe I don't play any of these Reds lines. Maybe I don't know. Okay, so now I'm going to build some level of diversification. I don't want to play 20. I don't necessarily diversification-wise play 20 lineups that look like each other. Okay, I don't mind the minimum. I don't care what the minimum salary is. 45,000 for all I care. It's probably not going to end up being that low, being that I'm playing one-offs. And then okay, let's see what comes. Use running exposure percentages. Try to get a little bit of diversification just in my 300 set to choose from. I could use randomness. It doesn't matter. So I'm not playing all 300 lineups. So I'm just going to build based on that. Let's make sure we got everything. Everything equals everything. 5x, 100%, all of this, right? Let's refresh this one more time just in case the projections were updated. No, I'm not running 5-3 stacks. I'm running 5-1-1-1 stacks. It's a 4-game slate, and I'm playing a large field contest. Like 5-3, I'd be more likely on a 4-game slate to run in single entry, smaller stuff. But most likely, like the likelihood of one team going off is a little bit lower. And I'd rather have the one-offs, the game that's only 3-0. There's one guy that hit 2 home runs. Like that stack's not going to win, but you're going to need that one-off, especially when it's only a 4-game slate. So everyone's going to be owned to some extent. Now I could look at others. I could look at all these others also. And a lot of times I would. A lot of times let me take a look at some of these, some of those, there's only so much time. So I'm just defaulting to 5x right now for the sake of this show, especially. So I'm going to build. And remember, look, I put in I manually put in a Colin Moran and a Jake Berger projection. Now, obviously, the slate doesn't start until 12:35. We got another hour and 10 minutes or so. Like it probably gets updated by then. So I don't need the fake numbers. But there's no point of we're just going to sit here and stare at each other until that gets updated. No. I'll put in a manual close enough numbers just so I can run stuff. Most likely it's not going to be that off. Oh, I put in 10% owned for Colin Moran and he puts 14% owned. Is the 4% going to matter that much? Probably not. What would you run on FanDuel on a small game slate? Probably 4 something. Probably not 4-4 on a large contest. It's just that the likelihood of the one-offs, because it's quite likely in 4 games that none of the teams, like the highest scoring team only has 5 runs. So you're going to be more likely to have like very fractured winning lineups. So on FanDuel, it'd be more likely to run 4-2-1-1 or something like that. Probably I'd still run a 4-man stack, but I wouldn't put it past you to just run a 4-man stack and just 4x. That may be fun. If you want a little bit more correlation, I think 4-3-1. So it gives you that 1-1 off, and you're still stacking 2 teams. But you could find plus EV lineups of any construction type. What would you run? I would run plus EV lineups. There are going to be plus EV lineups on FanDuel that are 2-2-1-1-1. They're going to be 4-4 lineups that are plus EV. There are 3-3 lineups that are plus. They're all every construction type. There are plus EV lineups. There's no such thing as choosing just one. If you notice in top players, when they play 150 lineups, then, it's not all 5-3. It's all a mess of all different types of constructions. Okay, so taking a look here. What comes up? Okay, we capped a whole bunch of stuff. And now we're going to start looking through it. Okay? Very similar to what we did yesterday. This is a large field contest. I don't want high-owned lineups. But I also don't want low projected lineups. So let's take a look at, based on the bad X projections, what's the optimal lineup, even without a stack, right? It's going to calculate it right here. 108 as a projection and 306 at ownership. So like 291 is a little too owned, right? This is, it's a red stack. I mean, I have to expect that these red stacks are going to be high owned. So I'm going to go into stack summary, right? And I'm going to go to each individual stack, and I'm going to get rid of high-owned lineups. Like I could do that for the main thing right here. So before we do that, okay, so these 291 seems way too high, close to 306. These are very chalky lineups. So let's go to sort by ownership and get rid of some of these towards the top. Okay, 335. Like this is even higher than that. Like I don't want to play lineups with this high ownership. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of 332. I'm pretty much, I could get rid of anything down to maybe even 250. Right, so let's do this quicker, right? Because we don't have that much time. So I'm going to go total ownership low to high, and I'll be able to cut it off at the bottom. Right, so now we're getting down to 131 up here. Okay, so we're going to find a cutoff somewhere to get rid of some of these high-owned lineups. Okay, so here's 298. Yeah, they're mostly Cincinnati stacks, and here's some White Sox. 293. There's more White Sox and Varsho and Marte, White Sox Reds. Get rid of some of these. Let's get rid of anything under 280. Let's set that as the okay. So here, so we're gonna get rid of anything 279.83. We may get rid of those also, but delete all lineups below. These lineups are too high owned. They don't have enough leverage on average. So what are we down to? We got rid of all those. Scroll all the way back up. Right, we're down to 244 lineups. Okay, and now we're going to do total projection, low to high, or high to low. Total projection. Okay, so the optimal is 108. Okay, on a 4-game slate, like anything but 2 solo home runs, a 28. Like if something projects at under 90, maybe get rid of those. So let's see. Let's take a look at these projections. Do we have any lineups? What's the lowest lineup that we have? 93. Okay, that isn't even that bad. 93. 93. That's 108. I mean, get rid of it. We really don't have to get rid of. Maybe let's cut it off at 96, just as an example. I'm not even sure you have to get rid of these on a 4-game slate. If this was like a 12-game slate, then I'd start to get rid of some of these lineups. Okay, so here's 96. So I get rid of the lowest projected lineups in our set. Delete all lineups below and the lineup that this is. So we have that nice balance of projection and ownership, right, in that range. We still have tons of lineups, right? So we still have 227 lineups because we're trying to get down to 20. Okay, so now I'm going to go into each individual stack. Like we see, we don't have that many. and eliminate the lineups that are higher owned than their projection. So like as you scroll down, I showed this yesterday, you don't want to play choosing between lineups. If the lineup is lower projected, it should also be lower owned. So here's 202 right here, 202, 159, 158, 192. So like if you had to choose between these two lineups, they're almost the same projection, but this one is 40% higher owned. So no, we're not going to play that line. Right? Not going to play this lineup. Not that line. Okay. So it doesn't mean we're going to play any of these three lineups either, but it's easier to go stack by stack. So we're going to do that. So 278, 265, 255. Some of these are too high owned as it is. We're playing large field contests. So let's go back into here. I don't mind 202, but these Cincinnati stacks are they're so high owned. Here, and they have McClanahan and Burns in it as well. Is there ones that don't have those two pictures in it? Mikolas and Burns down to 231. Okay, that's a little bit better. 259. Like all these have McClanahan, Burns, and the Reds. That's like stone chalk. Maybe I get rid of them. I just screw it. I'm deciding. I have to cut this down to 20. I don't want the two chalk pictures in a Reds 5-man stack. So I'm just getting rid of them. Just from leverage. I have all the choices of all these lineups. Why am I going to play these? Right. Mikolas, Burns. I mean, I could leave this here. I could. Right. There's one lineup that I could. Okay. Maybe I could play that lineup. Get rid of these. Right. Okay. There. We're down to that. And then the St. Louis lineups. Right. Obviously, I'm not going to be playing McClanahan in these lineups. Okay. These are fine. Then we go to Phillies. Okay. Against Burns. Okay. We got 179, 193. Get rid of that. 179, 168, 159. This is too high. 152, 159, too high. 137 is fine. 182, too high. This is too high because we have to beat 137. So we're going to get rid of anything that we see. That's 137. Okay, so we got the Phillies lineups done. Now we go to the Brewers. 262. Should we even be playing this lineup? Is this too high? 262, 271. Yeah, let's start eliminating some of these lineups. 260, 247, which is a 5-3. McClanahan, Burns, Milwaukee 5-3. Is that even too much? Maybe get rid of that also. Yeah. 231. Okay, this may not be as bad. Yeah, because loop load's coming up at 0%. So that's going to be an issue. I'm assuming we're going to get a bunch of loop load at 8.36 because of that. Okay, so 231. Let's see if we can beat 231. So we start getting rid of some of these lineups. 231. We got to beat 231. Okay, 229. We got 229 here. Can we beat 229? 227. Now can we beat 227? Trimming those lineups. Now down to Arizona, 256. I mean, some of these lineups are still, I find, to be too high owned. Get rid of this, get rid of this. 233 with Brujan as a one-off with Burns, and it's just, even these. Yeah, let's start going. Let's start even getting rid of some of these. These may be too high owned also. So 233. We're just looking at all of them now. 233, let's just get rid of anything. Let's get rid of anything that's 220 and below, 200. Projected ownership, low to high. I don't mind having ultra leverage. I don't mind. So here's 200. 210, 220. Let's 220. Let's cut it off at 220. We don't have that many lineups anymore after that, right? So let's say we cut it off at 220. You don't let. I mean, what do we now? We got rid of a lot of lineups now, right? A good amount of lineups, right? Now we're down to 67. Okay, now we're talking. Okay, so basically, all we got is Dodgers, Rays, Phillies, and the Cardinals. We kind of got rid of the White Sox there, right? Well, White Sox are going to be pretty chalky. I don't mind this that much. Okay, I don't mind. Let's see. What is our player exposures on the pitchers? We still got tons of Shane McClanahan, right? McClanahan, Burns, Mikolas, Molly, F. Okay, we're still fine. Any positional players that we just have like an absurd amount of. You get Trey Turner, essentially. So a lot of the Dodgers. I don't mind that. Okay. Doesn't mean I'm going to add 20 lineups. It doesn't mean I'm playing 20 Dodgers lineups. But I just want to see what we got. But these should be fine. And let's just use all of them instead of going stack by stack and just getting rid of, just like we did before, getting rid of the lineups that are too high owned for their projection. 212, 217. Okay, so we have to beat 212 now. 201. 201, 195. We have to beat 195. I hope there's enough lineups. 195. I may need to make another run. Okay, so we got 212, 201, 195, 210. 195 is another 195. Oh, it's a little bit lower, so that counts. 195. 190. So what we're doing here is as the projection goes down, the ownership should go down also. If given the choice between playing two lineups. You could build 7 million lineups and do this. I mean, you build 2 uniques per, 1 unique per. You could find tons of lineups. Okay, now we finally got a Dodgers lineup. Let's just make sure it's the right lineup. Okay, the Dodgers just came in. Betts, Freeman, Turner, Smith, Muncy. Okay, they're switched in the order. Turner, Bellinger, Lux, Barnes. So Smith is going to be the DH. So Chris Taylor is not in the lineup. Barnes is in the lineup. Okay. Does that matter? I just have to make sure we don't have, out of these lineups, do we have any Chris Taylor in these lineups? Here's Chris Taylor. We got to just automatically get rid of those. I'm probably going to end up running this again after we're done with the show, but I'm just showing you the process. Okay, so get rid of these because we obviously can't play those. Right, and Austin Barnes is not in the pool. We would end up with some Austin Barnes lineups. But now that we've gotten rid of those, so we got, okay, 212, 195, 190, 186, 165, 218 is too much. We have to beat 165. Yeah, I think I'm going to run out of lineups. 165. Do we have anything under 165 here before I just start clicking everywhere? 168. 159. We got a 159 down there. 165. Let's get to that 159 lineup. Okay, 159, and that may end. Okay, 152. 137. Can we beat 130? Okay, we ran out of lineups. So we just got 8 lineups. Here's some 8 lineups. If I was playing 8 lineups, these would be the 8 lineups. I mean, take a look here. It's basically 5 Dodger stacks and 3 Philly stacks. Right? Seems like maybe Tampa Bay maybe is slightly not as highly projected in the bat as anything else. But that's kind of like the process. Now, if you don't want to play 5 Dodgers, 3 Phillies out of 8 lineups, you could have gone stack by stack. See, I went through the whole thing. But you could go stack by stack. You go, well, instead of just doing like all 300 lineups, just go, okay, let me look at the projection versus ownership for just the Philly stacks and just the Cardinal stacks and just the Dodger stacks and eliminate all the lineups in between there. And then maybe out of 20, I want to play 2 of them. Let's say there's 4 left. Well, pick 2 out of the 4. There you go. Right? You may have the Dodgers. You may have, oh, I have 36 Dodgers lineups, but I only want to play 6 of them. Well, then pick 6, then eliminate the ones in the middle, projection versus ownership, and then pick the 6 you want to play. And maybe there's a diversification rate. Oh, let me pick the 6 that don't have the same 2 pitchers in it all. Okay, you can do that. And there you go. Like you see here, like there's no magic settings. I didn't use I didn't build 20 lineups. Did you see me put in any max exposures anywhere? You see me talking about exposures at all? No. Now, if there was an issue where I was getting 86% of T-type, whatever Friedel dude in my 300 lineups, maybe I'd be like, okay, maybe I cap it at some number. I don't want to play more than X of that person, so I just don't get as many lineups to choose from that person. I could still end up with 20 TJ Friedel lineups. But at least from the get-go, I'm not getting like 300 lineups and 270 of them have him in it. So it's nearly impossible to not get a lot. Scorpion McScorp says, can Excel do this for you? It would save a bunch of time. Yes, it can. It absolutely can. You could do this in Excel. You can make it that it spits out 300 lineups. You throw it in Excel. It calculates, the total ownership and the total projection. And then you make it into a list format and go, when one number is this high, one number is that high, and eliminate the rows that are, or at least put an X. I have a way to do it so it's manual. It's not that great. It'll highlight the ones that you should keep, essentially. And there you go. But that'll do it in one sheet. Then if you want to do it team by team, it gets complicated. To me, at least, it gets complicated. I'm not an Excel wizard. On a scale of like 1 to 10 in Excel, I'm like a 3. Okay, I'm not very good. James McCool, he's like a 9. He could do everything. Me, I have to piecemeal stuff together. I have to Google stuff. How do I do this? And I hack through it. And I end up doing it some long way. And then someone shows me, you could just do this with it shows me like a 4-line function and a little thing and press a button. I go, Jesus, how do you did that? Took me 17 hours to come up the way that I do it. That involves me having to cut and paste 14 different things all the time. But no, I could do it automatically. Oh, you could do this and pull that, and then okay. I'm not that skilled. But the process is similar. Like you don't like did I look through stats here? What's the guy's K rate? What's his ISO? I have no clue. I'm trusting the model. It's a projection system. The ownership's here. Now, if you want to change the ownership, change the ownership. If you want to change any of these numbers beforehand, I don't believe that this guy should be projected and changing. As once you have numbers on players, you don't need the players anymore. You just need the numbers in the lineups. So let's say, even though you could sign up for RotoGrinders Premium, right? Use the link in the description, get $10 off your first month. You'll get the Plate IQ projections and the ownership. But I mean, if you don't like our ownership, you could use another site's ownership. You could use your own ownership. You could plug in your own projections. You could aggregate. Like we have this tool where if you want to upload other sites' projections and use our lineup builder, go for it. You could aggregate them together, right? I could say the bad projections with the Plate IQ projections and come up with an entirely new set of projections for myself. You could weight the ownership and the player projections separately. So let's say for instance, you will subscribe to some other site or you make your own. And you're like, well, I want to weigh their projections 20% for the player projections, but I want to weigh their ownership 50%, right? Because maybe you prefer their ownership. Who knows? You could do that in Lineup HQ. So if you wanted to, this is a tool, even if you're not using our projections or you just disagree. You go look at you could just easily look and go, well, I don't think Corbin Burns is going to be 60% owned. I think they're going to be 55% owned. Well, then change it. You probably have to move that 5%. If you're taking away 5% from someone, you probably have to give 5% to someone else, or at least in total to some of these other guys, right? If I change 60 down to 50 and 10 points, I need to add 10 points. Give 1 to Davis, give 2 to Anderson, give 3 to D. You have to do something. I mean, that would make it equal the right amount. It should equal 200%. So you could do that. But once you got the numbers, then it's just a matter of building lineups versus projection versus ownership. In a perfect world, it would be product ownership, not necessarily ownership sum, but either is not perfect. But if you do it by ownership sum, you're bluntly using that concept. What's the projection? What's the total ownership? Right? I don't want to build lineups that are way too high owned, and I don't want to build lineups that are way too low projected. So what's that balance? Right? I want to have lineups that are in the middle. And depending on the size of the contest, smaller field contest, 200-man contest, that range is closer to the top. Right? How much leverage do you need to win a 200-man contest? Not as much. So you're more likely to focus towards the top. You don't want to play the highest owned lineups, but even in that range towards the mid to the bottom for large field, you don't need to even play those lineups. Kind of focus a little bit more on projection. And then in the large field stuff, you do the opposite. Right? I'd rather sacrifice ownership, right? I'd rather play a lineup that's 10 points lower projected than end up playing a lineup that is way too high owned. So that's for larger field contests. And there you go. Welcome to DFS. That's the fundamental concept of DFS for GPPs at least, right? So those types of concepts I teach you in the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass of mine. You can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. How to think like a professional DFS player. And this is how professionals think. Like the nerdy people think. And do you need to know advanced formulas for this? Look at what I just did. Okay? You could do just that. Right? And there's going to be tons of lineups to choose from. I could do this, you could do this. We could come up with 20 completely different lineups that if we ran a million times would end up being about as profitable. Even though they look different. But are your lineups too high owned or too low projected? Then they're going to start. Then they're going to be negative EV. So what is that balance? Is there an exact number on that? No, of course not. Every slate's going to be different. Can you bluntly get in that range? Yeah, that you do just like what I showed. Look, I scrolled through and I said, oh, these lineups at 260% still look too chalky. Was there any scientific methodology behind that other than me looking at it and going, I have 20 lineups to choose from, and I'm going to side more towards the lower owned stuff. You could still play those lineups. You could still play those lineups. You could still do that. I made an arbitrary decision. There you go. But it's on that blunt concept of projection versus ownership. What is that mix? And once you have the numbers for everyone, then you don't have to worry about the baseball. You don't have to worry about baseball anymore. Right? I could try building 4-3-1 lineups and see what those look. I could 20 lineups. I want to build 5 4-3-1s. I want to build 5 5-3s. You could do that. Do different builds. Run 300 lineups of each of those constructions and put them all together. You could do that. You could try doing it all at once. It's a little bit more difficult, but you could do that as well. Then pick the 20 that you want. Pick the 3 that you want. Pick the 5, whatever amount of lineups that you're playing. Most likely, if you're playing 150 max, you're kind of doing it. It's hard to do it by just picking lineups. But if you're playing 20 or less, like you should be doing it this way and just picking the 20 you want to play. So we got crunch time coming up at noon. It's coming up in 12 minutes, right on this channel. Hit that notification bell. You'll know when it goes live, right on YouTube. We got Grinders live later today. Another crunch time. We got tons of stuff going on today. I'll be recording the MMA Ground and Pound podcast later today. That'll be coming out for premium members. We got MMA stuff. Get that combo premium subscription. You get everything. You get all this stuff. Look how powerful this tool is, Lineup HQ. Click on the description. You get everything. You get the MLB, NFL, NBA, everything that we come out with other than NASCAR. Get all of that for one. To me, it's way underpriced. Good luck trying to build Lineup HQ yourself. Yeah. You're not going to be able to do it, and it's going to take you a year working 40-hour weeks in order to even come close to this. So just pay the money. So crunch time's coming up next. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. Scorpion's asking about MMA tomorrow. Yes, Fridays are MMA only, right? So if you want MMA strategy, that's tomorrow. Obviously, I'm doing the podcast and the premium stuff, the expert survey for MMA as well. That's behind the paywall. But yes, we'll be talking about MMA tomorrow on the show and answering your DFS strategy questions like I always do on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.